David, thank you for your introduction. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And thank you for showing interest in a topic that I'm rather passionate about, and that is sleep, and the importance of sleep as a contributor to our overall general health. But more importantly, what happens when sleep doesn't work the way it's supposed to? And the topic is the psychological, physical and economic impact of poor sleep, especially in the workplace, and you all run small businesses, not only yourselves, but you may have employees as well. So I thought I'd start off with a quick poll. How many of you last night had the best sleep you ever had? Your head hit the pillow, woke up this morning full of energy, ready to go? Oh, okay. All right, so it took you a little while to get to sleep. You might have woken up in the night, had to go for a wee break as we do at this level of life experience. But just sort of slept okay, woke up, but you could have done with a bit more. Anybody in that category? Yep, all right. Anybody at the other end of the scale, tossed, turned, couldn't get to sleep, worried about a business meeting. How much is this going to cost? What am I going to do here? Ruminated during the night. And you woke up this morning and felt like, I've got to get through the day somehow. Anybody have really bad sleep?
That's probably me.
That sort of spectrum pretty much covers the Australian population. The good sleepers, the poor sleepers. But what's getting in the way of good sleep for everybody? Now I thought in order to, this presentation is based on a report that was compiled last year by the Sleep Health Foundation in Australia. It was done by Deloitte on behalf of the Sleep Health Foundation. It's a report or a survey that's done about every 4 or 5 years in terms of the sleep across the population. And the results were quite remarkable and quite startling. But in order to understand the impact of poor sleep in the workplace, I thought I'd give a very brief overview. Have you ever sort of defined sleep? What is sleep? How do we sleep? Why do we sleep? It is the single longest behaviour we do across any 24-hour period, so it must be important. I thought I'd run through all the different types of sleep disorders that are out there, and then into the psychological impact, the physical impact, the economic impact. And then I'll talk a little bit about the work I do in treating insomnia. Now, insomnia is the most common of all sleep disorders. It is treatable, and people who I have treated with their insomnia are very happily functioning now, getting a good night's sleep every night, and I haven't seen them since. So that's a good sign. All right. In trying to define sleep, all right, I've got two definitions here. One's a historical definition. Back in the 1830s, there was a very forward-thinking physician called Dr. Robert McNish, and he was probably one of the earliest people in sleep medicine to try and define what sleep is. And he said, it's the intermediate state between wakefulness and death. Well, nothing in between there. Wakefulness being regarded as the active state of all the animal and intellectual functions, and death as that of their total suspension. So could you imagine going to bed in the 1830s and good night dear, I'm just going to go and sleep on death's veranda for the next 8 hours. You know? There was nothing in between. So it was either all or nothing. These days we have a much more workable definition, a simple behavioural definition. Sleep is a reversible behavioural state of perceptual disengagement from and unresponsiveness to the environment. In other words, we just take time out from the world for 8 hours. And we need to do that, which for reasons which I'll explain. This is makes a lot of sense. We may still respond if something is loud enough or important enough to wake us up, but generally we take time out. Now we know from sleep how we can see. We know we don't move around much, our eyes are closed, and I'd love to meet the researcher or the person who came up with this term called postural recumbence. It sounds a politically correct definition of lying down. Now, a cup of tea and some postural recumbence doesn't sort of cut it like a cup of tea all over. But they're the obvious observable things we know. We cannot sleep standing up for reasons which I'll get to. So we must be lying down as best we can in order to sleep. We sleep in two states. We have rapid eye movement sleep, which is the second half, a lot more of the second half of the night, and non-rapid eye movement. The first one is restorative. That is just rest. We do very little. Low brain activity, this is measurable. Low brain activity, minimal muscle activity. But when we're in that REM state, have you ever laid next to your significant other and you can see the eyeballs going back and forth under the eyelids? That person is dreaming. That's rapid eye movement. And when we dream, we are actually paralysed. Muscle atonia, except for our lungs, our eyes, and our heart muscles. If we acted out our dreams, we would be running, kicking, screaming, smacking our significant other, rolling out, falling out of bed. evolution has created this very clever switch in the back of our brain that switches off our muscles while we're dreaming. Okay? So that's muscle autonomy. So they're the two general states of sleep. Has anybody ever had a sleep study done in a sleep centre? We go in overnight, we wire you up.
Several.
Yep, you have the electrodes.
Yeah.
That's measuring all the electrical activity in the brain, measures your respiratory rates. It's quite a comprehensive study of sleep. Big printout, and you can tell, how long you've been asleep, what states of sleep you've been in, how many times you woke up, which side you laid on. It's very, very good technology that's available these days. We measure sleep individually. We can talk about these things. Sleep latency. How long does it take you to get to sleep? Normally 15 to 20 minutes. If it's less, that's good. We have wake after sleep onset. That's the number of times you wake up during the night. And for how long? We don't want that. Normally, none. Sleep studies show, though, we actually do pop into periods of wakefulness across the night. Our brain activity is equivalent to wakefulness. The thing is, we don't remember it unless it's at least 2 or 3 minutes long. But normally, if you wake up in the morning and you have no recollection of waking up, that's pretty good. We measure your total time in bed. Simple. The moment you get into bed, the moment you get out of bed. And within that time, how long have you actually been asleep? We can therefore measure your sleep efficiency. How good are you at sleeping once you're in bed? The target is 90%. It doesn't leave much room for anything else. Okay? How many of you have a TV in the bedroom? Own up. Yeah, 1, 2. Yeah. All right. Why? Okay. What are beds for? Sleep. The bed, the bedroom, 2 things and 2 things only. One of them is sleep. We know what the other one is, but it isn't watching TV, it's not reading a book, it's not talking to the kids, it's not having a cup of tea. So we want to go to bed to sleep. Very simple reason, those other activities, we're telling our brain that it's okay to be in bed and be awake. All right? So we want to see the pillow and hit the pillow. Go to sleep. All right, why do we sleep? Science can't entirely agree on one simple reason, but a combination of reasons makes sense. It is basically body restoration, it's rest. Go to sleep, slow down, rest. Consolidation of memory and problem solving. That's thought to be associated with the dreaming process. Okay, so we're problem solving. We're figuring out and filing away what's important to remember from the day's activities and what we can throw away. For example, if we start a new job somewhere, we need to know what time to catch a bus, where to catch it, what number of the bus or the train is. So we need to remember that, but we don't need to remember what the bus driver or the train driver actually looked like. So we throw that information out, but we need to remember the important stuff. So another function of sleep is memory consolidation and filing things away. You've heard of the saying, if you've got a problem, sleep on it. It's true. You wrestle with something during the day, you can't figure it out, have a good night's sleep. It's amazing how the answer will crystal clear come to you the next morning. And the most recent research says that the brain actually does change shape somewhat during the night to release toxins. Now, our body clears toxins, the rest of our body clears toxins, why not the brain? So that's fairly recent research that's come up with a reason. But sleep research is ongoing. There is still so much we don't know about sleep and the mechanics of sleep for everything we do know. And the brain has resources available at night time to perform these tasks while we're asleep. Parts of the brain are actually more active when we're sleeping than they are during the day. The brain, as we know, is just a fascinating, most complex piece of equipment that we've ever owned and ever likely to. Now, here's how we sleep. We don't sort of go to sleep, nothing, and then wake up. We actually sleep in waves or cycles. So we do our deepest sleep first. Then we come back up, we might do a little bit of dreaming, might be 2 or 3 minutes, and that's all. Back down we go into deep sleep again. Then the second half of the night, we do lighter sleep, but this is where we do more of our dreaming. Now sometimes if we remember our dreams, it might feel like a full-length feature film, but it's not. The dream segments, the REM segments are only 4, 5, 6, 8 minutes long, and then back we go. So we sleep in these sort of waves and stages, and each of these cycles is around about 90 minutes, about an hour and a half. So that's sort of what sleep looks like electrically. So here's our non-REM sleep, our restorative sleep, our rest. Here's our problem-solving memory consolidation part. So if you don't get enough sleep, you are missing out on either this or that, but both are important. Now, some of the sleep disorders, insomnia is the most common one, chronic and acute. Chronic insomnia, the symptoms of insomnia, difficulties getting to sleep, difficulty maintaining sleep, that is, you wake up too much during the night, or early wakening at an inconvenient time and you can't get back to sleep, and you have significant daytime impairment. It affects you during the day. Chronic, if that occurs 3 or more nights a week for 3 months or longer, you may have chronic insomnia. Acute insomnia, nobody escapes that. At some point we've all had acute insomnia, 1 or 2 nights of really bad sleep, generally caused by a major event. Could be a death of a family member, loss of a job, or birth of a new family member, or gaining a job, or first day on the job, or a job interview. You know, all of those things can really arouse our brains and keep us well and truly active at night. The cure for acute insomnia is generally do nothing. In other words, it'll pass 2 or 3 nights later, back to sleep. Chronic insomnia, a lot more. This is where you might latch on to the thought of the bad event that's happened and you can't solve it, and suddenly, night after night, week after week, you've suddenly got sleep problems. Okay. We have the medical problems, obstructive sleep apnea, which is a blockage of the airway. When we're lying down, the airway gets blocked. So we're not, despite the fact we're trying to breathe. But if it's 15, 20 seconds, sooner or later the brain says, wake up, wake up, wake up and breathe. So that's why people with sleep apnea will never get into a deep sleep, because they're constantly being woken up by the blockage. Less common but far more serious is your central sleep apnea. This is the failure of your breathing muscles altogether. So there's something wrong with your central nervous system. So you just aren't breathing, that's a real problem. We have hypersomnolence, which is too much sleep, but we're still not refreshed. Narcolepsy is the worst one of that. People fall asleep at the most inappropriate times during the day. It's not curable, but it's treatable, it's manageable. The other one, what we call idiopathic, is people sleeping too long for no apparent reason, but they're still not refreshed. They might sleep 10 or 11 hours, and they're still not. There's something else going on there. So that can be a problem. We have our sleep phase disorders. Who's had teenagers or been through the teenage raising thing? The teenagers did not get tired before 11 o'clock or midnight, and you're there saying, go to bed, go to bed, go to bed.
2 in the morning.
2 in the morning.
Yeah, that's a lot like it.
This is from the age about 16 through to early adulthood. Give them a break. It's evolutionary. It can't be helped. If everything goes well, their sleep will return to normal sleeping hours, 10, 11 o'clock, by the time they enter early adulthood. It's an evolutionary thing. We think, research thinks it's the body's developed and developed and developed up through the age of 16 to cope with growing up in childhood. Then the brain says, right, we're going to renovate you for adulthood. So it pulls all that apart, of course. Poor parents, they receive monosyllabic grunts from their teenagers, they're walking around, you know. But here's the problem. They're expected to be up again at 7 o'clock in the morning to go to school or go to university. So they're walking around for a few years with sleep deprivation. Don't be too hard on them, you know. They can't help it. So that sort of occurs during adolescence and sometimes in adulthood. Advanced sleep phase disorder occurs more in older people, where people go to bed earlier and earlier, and they're getting up earlier. They might, you know, grandma and granddad might go to bed at 6 or 7 o'clock at night, and they're up at 3, but they've actually had a good night's sleep. But it's just the inappropriate time of the day. Irregular sleep-wake disorder, well, that's the body clock's not working properly at all. Non-24 hour, that's a hideous sleep disorder, where it just rotates over weeks or months. And, you know, you might see someone who actually has to sleep during the day, but they're fine at night. 2 weeks later, you see them sleeping at night. It's just a rolling clock. That's hard to fix. Shift work. Has anybody ever done shift work? No? Yeah. It will creep up on you, and it's not. We're not meant to work at night. We're evolved to sleep at night and work during the day. So if we're playing with or trying to force our body to do something it's never been meant to do, that could be a problem with shift work. And jet lag, well, that's sort of short term. We're trying to cross too many time zones in too short a space of time that our body clock can't keep up. So there's some of the sleep disorders. We've got sleepwalking, sleep terrors, sleep-related eating disorder is a really interesting one, where you come downstairs and see a plate and a glass and a cup. You've got no recollection of what happened, but it was you who ate. Now that's not the midnight snack. The midnight snack is you wake up and you think, I'm hungry, I am definitely going to the fridge to get something to eat. The sleep-related eating disorder, there's no recollection. Sleep terrors occurs a lot in children, screaming, what seems like nightmares, but again, kids don't remember a thing in the morning. The difference between that and nightmares is we remember the content of the nightmare. Okay? So And this one, REM sleep behaviour disorder, that's where that brain switch doesn't work properly that shuts our muscles down. And there are videos from sleep centres of people asleep and they are actually thrashing around. There's one I've seen where a guy is boxing and he ends up falling out of bed. It's a sort of physically dangerous sleep disorder to have. So that's some of them, and then the others we have restless legs, which is irresistible need to move our legs at night, periodic limb movement disorders associated with that, and bruxism, which is the grinding of the teeth. That's usually associated with some sort of anxiety, where you're grinding away your teeth in the middle of the night, and often dentists see that evidence of that when they're treating people with the teeth. So, if you thought there's only a few, there was a lot. Now, does this picture ring a bell with anybody here? Watching movie. At work, watching a movie, driving, wide awake at night. That might ring a bell with you. Okay. What happens when we don't sleep properly? Okay, psychologically, the most common comorbid conditions are depression and anxiety. Now, interestingly, these two conditions can cause each other. Now, you may be depressed first, have depression for whatever reason, you may develop a sleep problem. Or if you have a sleep problem first and it's getting worse, you may develop depression. The same goes for anxiety. So they're what are called dual causality. It's not necessarily any particular order that depression and sleep problems, or sleep problems and depression will manifest first, but you can treat them both. Daytime impairment, fatigue, tiredness, weariness. I'll come back to drowsy driving. Mood disorder, irritability. If you haven't had a good night's sleep for a few nights, snappy, snappy, snappy at everybody around you, you know, that can happen. Poor concentration, poor memory, sometimes risk-taking behaviours that you wouldn't normally do if you were feeling pretty good because you've slept well. And in some cases, especially with people with depression and anxiety, they can get ideas about suicide. This is the impact of poor sleep. Drowsy driving is not well publicised here, but it is huge in the United States. Occurs a lot with sleep deprivation in general, if you haven't slept well and you try and drive. But it occurs a lot with shift workers. The night shift workers driving home just as the sun is getting up is one of the most dangerous times for people in trying to beat sleep, which is trying to naturally do. And the sun's also at times trying to say, well, wake up, it's daytime. You know? So it's this really intensive mind battle going on. But drowsy driving is a real problem. Next time you see an article on the news about, say, a B double on the M1 or the Bruce Highway that's all by itself, has run off the road, 90% chance or more that the driver has simply fallen asleep because he hasn't slept properly, or he has a condition affecting his sleep. So, physical impact. If we don't sleep properly, these things are known to happen. Lead to obesity. If we're awake during the night, what's the logical thing we're going to think about doing? Going to eat something. But our digestive system isn't designed to work at 2 a.m. So you eat something, where's that going to go? Well, you're going to put on weight. Linked to cardiovascular illness, diabetes, stroke, hypertension, high blood pressure, all the major illnesses that you can have directly as a result of poor sleep. Now, we get to the crux of this. This report, as I said, was commissioned last year, the economic impact in the workplace for people who have poor sleep. 4 out of 10 Australian adults frequently suffer from inadequate sleep. 4 out of 10. So we're talking 7.4 million people, that is the combined population of Sydney and Melbourne. Walking around, not slept properly. 1.1 with sleep disorders directly, insomnia and the sleep apneas. 2.5 million with health problems affecting sleep. And 3.8 who just fail to get enough sleep because of, there is the thought, well, other things are more important. Watching a movie at midnight or going to nightclubs at 3 a.m. Don't get me started on that one, that's a shocker. But who walk around, they go home, they have 3 or 4 hours sleep and they're gone again for the day. Constantly under sleep deprivation, which is not good. Sleep deprivation was linked to 3,000 deaths last financial year. 394 of those falling asleep at the wheel or operating industrial equipment, causing accidents. There are two no, you're not going anywhere. That's it. You're not
It's been fascinating.
That's okay. No worries. I'll catch up soon. Yeah. Two of the most world famous incidents known regarding poor sleep: the Exxon Valdez disaster in 1988, where two oil tankers polluted the whole of the North American coast, Alaska and the Arctic. Another one is the, I think it was the Columbia Space Shuttle that broke up on re-entry quite a few years ago. The astronauts' sleep was not managed, and it was just found that they had had so bad sleep deprivation while they were whizzing around the Earth. By the time they had to do all those critical functions and critical tasks to get the space shuttle to re-enter properly, things were missed, accidents happened. Okay. So that's just two of the major examples of poor sleep and how catastrophic it can be. So the total cost overall, there's that figure, $66 billion. Now I was trying to equate up until a few weeks ago, what does $66 billion look like? And I was wanting to compare it, say, to the real estate market or the stock market. The recent stock market correction that happened in early February, where suddenly 300, 400, 500 points fell off the stock exchange, that figure was 60 billion. I thought, right, that amount of money lost, wiped off the stocks and shares, 60 billion. We're talking, this is caused by poor sleep. So that's important. Now, how is that broken down? Some of that is health system costs. Going to the doctors, getting sleeping tablets, or some other health requirement. $246 per person, that's taxpayers' money paying for that. Productivity losses in the workplace, $2,500 per person. Now, in small business, that's a lot of money. Informal care, someone has to go home or look after someone who's had poor sleep. Dead weight losses, $802. Now, what does that mean? Now, we know what absenteeism is, but there's also something called presentism, which is your employee turns up for work, but they're constantly at the coffee machine, or they're sneaking off and trying to get a quick 5 minutes. They're there, but they're not there. All right? They might as well be absent, but it's still a component, but their productivity is just about zero for the day. It all adds up. And general loss of well-being, well, people no longer go to the gym, or they no longer do the fitness activities, the health activities they were meant to do, and that all adds up, directly due to inadequate sleep. The report recommended a whole bunch of things, and I've got a printout here of the key findings. Raising the awareness of the importance of sleep hygiene. Us health professionals, this is part of what we do in making this aware and helping people sleep better. Education, getting people away from these wretched things at night time, smartphones. The light that comes out of here is similar to the wavelength which turns off melatonin during the day, which is our sleepy, drowsy drug that naturally comes out at night time. If you're looking at your smartphone at night time, oh, okay, you want to be awake, therefore you'll be awake. So these things are a wretched nuisance, especially amongst teenagers, as you probably know. Development of cost-effective treatments and so on. Continuing research needs to be going on. Encouragement. Prevention is always better than the cure. Encouraging people to develop good sleep habits. Occupational health and safety have got an input in this, in terms of providing better management of shift work, if the business must be a shift working business. Educating people going home regarding driving home after shift work, and increase natural light in the workplace. Get the light into your brain to tell you it's daytime. You're meant to be awake. You're meant to be alert. Okay, a little bit about what I do. Cognitive behavioural treatment of insomnia. This is now recommended as the first-line behavioural treatment for insomnia by American College of Physicians and now the Australasian Sleep Association. It involves some various components. A little bit of sleep restriction. Ironically, the treatment at the start is we're going to keep you awake so that you go to sleep properly. We're trying to actually put sleep in one big chunk for you. But that's sort of over a few weeks, and then it gets better after that. Stimulus control. What do you do if you still can't sleep? Don't stay in bed lying awake. Find some activities to do for a little while, then get back to bed. Sleep hygiene. What are the things you do leading up to bedtime? Basically, from the moment the sun goes down to when you go to bed. Are you doing too many busy, active, exciting things that you get into bed and you're still going to be awake? So we talk about all those sort of activities, and a little bit of what your beliefs really are about sleep. What do you think about sleep and what's really true? So we do a bit of bit of discussion about that with what are called the dysfunctional beliefs about sleep. Now, sleeping tablets are effective, but only in the short term. The behavioural change is what's meant to last a whole lot longer. It is CBTI, the treatment is found to be the best treatment for at least 3 years after someone's had insomnia, and up to 70% of people respond really well to it. It's not 100% for everybody, but certainly works in a majority of cases, and people take ownership of their sleep, they learn how to sleep better, and that's the effectiveness of it. We can treat sleep as well as treating depression and anxiety at the same time, and when that is done, there is a very rapid improvement in the client's condition. They start functioning really well back out in the real world. And there's good evidence about helping with pain tolerance too. Quite often you can't sleep because of the pain. Well, if we get the client to accept that the pain is already going to be there, let's work on your sleep, it actually turns out pretty well. So it becomes pain becomes more manageable because they're getting better sleep, and their perception of the pain changes as well. What does a good sleep client look like? Well, first of all, how committed are you to getting a better night's sleep? First, do you want to sleep even better? Generally, you need to be medically stable, psychologically stable, compliant with your other medications. This one's important, preferably not on any sleep medications at all. It defeats the purpose. This is behavioural change. So come off your sleep tablets, and about 6 to 8 weeks, you may find suddenly you're sleeping well. Here's the thing, how much are you or anybody you know willing to give up 6 or 8 weeks of their time, or put 6 or 8 weeks of their time and effort in order to sleep well for the rest of your life? It's almost a sales pitch, if you like. You know, a little bit of short-term work here, guess what you're going to get for the rest of your life? You're going to get a good night's sleep every night. And a couple of follow-ups. So, in summary, how much do people need? Kids, as much as they can get. So when your mum and dad said to you at 7:30 when you were younger, go to bed and go to sleep, they were probably right. Because kids need at least that 10 hours to sleep properly. Adolescents, 8 to 10 hours, preferably at the 10-hour end. And that's where that problem comes in with their phase shift. They're going to be sleep deprived for a few years. Normal, healthy adults, 7 to 9 hours. Now, some adults work fine on 7 hours, they get a good night's sleep, they're perfectly fine during the day, every day, no problem at all. Other people need 9, that's okay. That's where this myth comes in, I must get 8 hours sleep. Not necessarily so, it's right in the middle, but some get 7, some get 9 and they're fine. I'm a 7.5 hour person. That's my ideal appointment with sleep. But the key to that, same time to bed every night and same time out of bed every morning, and the most important one of those is getting up early, or getting up at the same time every morning, telling your brain, hey, it's daytime, let's go. Get cracking for the day. There's some references I've used to compile this. I've got some summary of the Sleep Health Foundation report, which you can Google Sleep Health Foundation, Asleep on the Job, and the report, the link to the report will come up. I can recommend this book here, Sleeping Your Way to the Top. It's quite a catchy title, but it actually dispels the myth that often CEOs or presidents or leaders in high places think that you've got to work 20 hours a day and only need 4 hours sleep. Dispels that myth altogether. Her research, Terry Crowell's research, finds that the best performing CEOs and best performing business people are the ones who get a really good night's sleep every night. It makes sense. I met Terry last year in Washington. She's a registered nurse, but she is a sleep educator in the United States. She's quite well known over there. Very smart lady. She's often tweeting about sleep tips and how to get good sleep. You can get the book at Amazon or Book Depository. It's a very readable book, quite humorous in places, but I can highly recommend that. Maybe this is you. I am not an early bird or a night owl. I'm some form of permanently exhausted pigeon. Does that ring a bell? How many of you in here consider yourself to be morning people? Or night people? Yeah, right, pretty much. The population is pretty much split 50-50. You're a lark or an owl. I'm a lark, morning person. I do my best work in the morning. I can write reports at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm fine. Don't ask me to write a report at 4 in the afternoon. I'd rather do that in the morning. So you know your own best functionality is morning or afternoon. Finally, lack of sleep is only bad if you have to drive or think or talk or move. Pretty much covers everything. So tonight when you go to bed tonight, I hope this message is going to get through to you. Make sleep your friend. Don't fight it, bring it on. Let sleep come to you. Thank you for your time. And good night. Do you have any questions? And I know some of you might have to go off to work, but I'm happy to stay behind for a little while if you want to chat. Yes?
I've got, I used to stay in hotels a lot working away.
Yeah.
And I thought, when I used to wake up in the night thinking what I've got to do tomorrow, things to do list going on, probably the eyes doing that.
Yeah.
But I used to think that the hotel or someone would come up with a notepad and pen at the side of the bed for that reason. Because if you notice, hotels, you've got a pad and paper somewhere in the room, don't you? And I used to, and I found that if I wrote it down in the middle of the night, toilet break, if I wrote it down, it would help me get back to sleep. Does that make sense?
You are creating what's called a worry list. So before you go to bed, jot those things down that are on your mind.
Of course, not during the night.
Not during the night. And you're telling your brain, yeah, I've already worried about that. Because what are you trying to solve at 2 o'clock in the morning that you haven't been able to solve the day before? So ask yourself, well, is it doing myself any good right now trying to solve this problem? And is it good for my health right now? If you answer no to both of those, you can roll over and go back to sleep. So if you know you're there for a business trip or whatever, write it all down before you go, preferably half an hour before you go to bed. You've already told your brain I'm worried about that.
I wondered if it's when it's like even now when I go to bed, I think, when I'm relaxing, just about to go to sleep, I remember. Because I couldn't remember earlier because I was too tired. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
So I end up getting up and thinking, well, just make a note of these things.
Even if you do that, but as much as you can before you go to bed. The other thing about hotels, there is something called, it could be called first night hotel syndrome, where even though you're on holidays, you're looking forward to your holiday, you don't sleep too well the first night in a hotel. That's evolutionary. It's our threat system's activating because we're in a strange bed or a strange room, okay? Second and third and fourth night, bang, you're asleep, no problem at all. You're enjoying the sights and the sounds and you're naturally tired at the end of the day. But that first night hotel, it's just that strangeness. That goes back to when we were living in caves. We were always alert for threats. But good point, do the worry list before you go to bed. Very handy.
I've got a quick question about the time the sun comes up.
Yes.
Summer here, okay? So, just so you know all the details of my profile, my wife likes it when it breathes through, so she keeps the curtain open. Okay? That means the sun streams in. I seem to be more susceptible to being woken up by the sun than she does. She sleeps through, but I get woken up at 4:30, and then so I've taken putting a t-shirt over my eyes, just to block that light out. Any suggestions?
Absolutely essential that your bedroom is a good, cool environment and as dark as you can make it. One of the researchers that I've learned from over in Philadelphia, the question is, could you develop photographic film in that bedroom? It needs to be that dark until such time as you wake up. If you've got black curtains, that's great, but sometimes you've got that gap around where the light streams in. See if you can even black that out. You want to wake up and fall asleep and wake up naturally, which should correspond to around the time of sunrise and sunset. Make that room as dark as possible, as cool as possible, minimal noise as possible, no distractions, so that your body goes to sleep without disturbance, and then it can stay asleep. If you've got the window open though, do you get traffic noise at night time?
No, we're not quite street,
Oh, okay.
but it's so that there's cross breeze in
Yes.
addition to the fan.
The fan, yep.
She finds it hard. So it's one of those fancy actually, isn't it?
Yeah. Has she tried sleeping without it though? Has she become conditioned to, I can't go to sleep unless I have the window
A little
open?
bit.
Yeah.
She probably closes her eyes like me. My eyes closed and there is no light. I don't think that's black. So
But yeah,
it's probably.
Can you get those things? If you reply Emirates, ask them for the iPads because they have some really good ones and they'll ask about Emirates.
Oh, right. There is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those iPads.
Those iPad things are deadly, man. They just put them on.
So make the bedroom environment as cool and quiet and dark as possible for as long as possible. And hopefully, if you're waking up pretty much around 4:35, look, it's hard in Brisbane in summer because we don't have daylight saving and sometimes the light streams in. You can't help but wake up. Your body will sense that there's light around, so Ping me away, but make it as dark as possible if you can.
Does
And
that apply to teenagers too? 'Cause
Sorry?
then they don't-
Yeah.
Does that apply to teenagers too? Because then they don't get out of bed.
Well-
I think my son's probably still in bed now and he's
Yeah.
almost dark.
I was going to say, and how do you control the other end of them, staying up? Because they keep you up as well. Mum, can you do this?
Yes, this is that.
They're not when you do it.
They're naturally not tight. This is now.
Yeah.
This is so important at the involvement of. I don't see children in my practice. I don't treat children generally, but when it comes to sleep, if you're going to treat children for sleep disorders, it invariably involves the parents as well. And what education can you give the parents to educate the kids, whether at what age, whether they're teenagers or what. This stuff isn't taught in schools, and I wonder why. This sleep health is so important. It should be into high schools and even primary schools. These jolly things from the 21st century, and these are the.
I was going to say, that's the big thing. They're we all on them, but they are on them, and you go into your room and you don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what they're doing.
This is their preferred communication method. What happened to the old-fashioned way you and I grew up with a face-to-face meeting this summer? There is now a condition called FOMO, fear of missing out, and this is again through social media, Facebook, and all of those things. This is a major problem. There is currently developing a generation of teenagers who are going to have myopia because they're looking at their screens so close at night, dark, it's not well lit. So there's going to be eye problems with youngsters.
Well, I've got 5 teenagers, one that's now nearly it's frightening. The last 2 got glasses.
Yeah. It could be. It could be
I wonder
from.
whether it's
Very likely. Highly possible.
Yeah, I think it's definitely had an impact. So I did
Yes.
ask the optometrist, and he said, he should. The last one, he's 14 now. He should grow out of that, but I still think it's a screen time.
It's possible, definitely. And yes, sometimes kids can have those transient sort of illnesses or temporary things that yes, their eyes will get better, but this won't help.
No.
These things won't help. The more these are being used, the worse it's going to get, and it is now. But the social disconnection, for us it doesn't make sense. What does it matter what your friend's doing at 1 o'clock in the morning on Facebook? It'll still be there in the morning.
Yeah.
But this is the generation that they're in.
Just one question, Jeff. I was just thinking. So you do wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it comes sit down again, or habitual, or whatever. How do you get back to sleep? You feel a quick toilet break, you go back and you think,
and then suddenly you're around.
You're wide awake. Is there anything you can do to treat yourself or get yourself back to sleep quickly?
Well, you can try just focus on your breathing. Just focus on your breathing. And this concept of mindfulness is now coming in as part of a treatment of being aware of what's happening right now. Now, at 3 o'clock in the morning, you don't want to be latching onto any thoughts about work. So you could just lie there if you like and just do some slow, steady breathing and focus your mind only on your breathing. Breathing is something we do 24/7 and we pay absolutely no attention to it. But when we do, it becomes very, very relaxing. You notice the air going in, you notice the air going out. Then you might like to lie there and just do a bit of a body scan, right? How do my feet feel on the mattress? How do my legs feel? How do my shoulders feel? If you do that sort of up and down sort of scanning of your body and your mind, focus on your breathing. You can do some relaxation exercises like that. But to fix your sleep properly, we could break through that if you were to say have some CBTI treatment, and force yourself to sleep for only a few hours a night in a big chunk, it will break through that. But one of the problems, of course, for business people is that it's a 24/7. You own the business. You're an investigator. So of course you're going to be worried about it. You can't necessarily switch off 9 to 5 like you can if you're working for someone. You walk out the door, you go home, and that's it. You've forgotten about it till 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so there is a significant investment in your own business. But if you do what you suggested, write down as many things as you can. But if it's still bothering you, yeah, sure, I can. We'll talk some more about that. Yes.
One thing I noticed I do is I sleep less during normal, sort of like when I'm working and all that sort of stuff. But when I go on holidays, my whole sleep pattern changes, just like overnight.
It comes back. Like you get more sleep.
I get more sleep and I feel more relaxed.
Yeah.
Even though we went to Egypt and running around like blue-ass flies because they organised a tour from hell.
Yeah.
But well, it actually wasn't. But it sort of had.
Yeah. But you're a healthy type because all these new sights, new sounds, your brain's active during your day, taking all that new information in, and you're becoming naturally tired. You know, you've got to be fit to travel. I've discovered that myself. But boy, can you sleep well at night when you're on holidays?
Yeah.
Now, it's an interesting thing you brought up, where you have people in high positions, presidents of countries, CEOs of companies and so on. Okay, they should be still getting their normal sleep, but the pressure of that work often gets interrupted with their sleep. What's being found is that when you leave that job, eventually normal sleep does return. So it can be a transient thing where, because of the job, for a president or prime minister for 4 or 8 years, it's been shown later on their sleep does end up returning to normal because that pressure is taken away. So the intensity of the activities we're doing in the 21st century has a lot to do with sleep disruption. It's not the only reason, but all the more reason to be aware I've still got to manage my sleep as best I possibly can. So good point you brought up.
Yeah,
Which is the purpose of holidays, really, is to unwind, relax, catch up on all that stuff and have a good time.
It's funny, I used to live in PNG and used to hop on the plane and it's like an hour later, what's I doing today? I just completely forget.
Yeah.
It's sort of just, I'd switch into a different mode.
Exactly, yeah. Thank you so much for your questions, and I hope you found that interesting.
Yeah.
For those of you